I'm Dr. Laura Berman. I'm a therapist and an author and a television and radio host.
And I'm Sam Chapman, and I am an accidental activist.
I got the number! Oh, this is recording!
Our son Sammy was an amazing kid. Sweet, funny, curious, an A student. We worked hard to keep him away from dangerous people and places. On February 7th, 2021, a drug dealer got in touch with Sammy through Snapchat and offered him a colorful menu of drugs.
The drug menu that our son received said that he delivers.
It was Super Bowl Sunday, and I brought my son a cheeseburger. He told me that he loved me, and an hour later he was dead on the floor.
I started pumping on his chest until the EMTs got there, and then they worked on him to no avail.
And he was gone.
Fentanyl is what killed him, so the drug that killed him got delivered to our house as easily as a pizza.
It takes 2 grains of salt worth of fentanyl to kill someone. This is the leading cause of death for adults 18 to 45 in this country. It's as big a deal as COVID, and people are sitting on their hands.
Snapchat has become the delivery system of choice for drug dealers pushing their products into young hands.
It was pretty much Amazon for drugs.
If a child, just out of curiosity, looks up drugs, immediately the algorithm then not only starts sending drug dealers to the child, but sends the child's information to the drug dealers. Snapchat erases it, which they don't have to do. So if they didn't erase it on the back end, then there could be recourse when crimes are committed.
They found our son's killer, and the district attorney decided not to prosecute. They're not prosecuting any of these fentanyl crimes.
The problem is Snapchat doesn't even allow parental monitoring software.
We've joined a lawsuit with 64 other families that are suing Snap Inc. We're in it to see those algorithms turned off, the geolocator turned off, for them to not make the snaps disappear forever, but to be kept in a vault in case law enforcement needs it.
Parents showing up outside Snapchat headquarters in Santa Monica today. That's part of a social media protest.
We're pushing for Sammy's Law, which would require parent monitoring software integration on any gaming platform or social media platform that has children on it.
Online drug dealing is not a social media problem. It is a Snapchat problem.
We want the people who work at Snap Inc. to know, why are these people out in front of our office? Why are they screaming and yelling and holding up pictures of their dead children? And the answer is because you all had something to do with it.
I told Evan Spiegel, CEO of Snap Inc., that he had to decide whether he wanted to die a rich man or die with all of these children's death on his conscience.
What was the response to that?
Silence.
They won't even respond to our calls.
Evan Spiegel, come out and speak to us now!
I will fight for you.
Nothing is more powerful than an army of grieving parents.
I miss you so much!
Yes, let it out. Willing to change and use that pain as purpose to make a difference.
We have to do something, like something has to be done.
I'm not giving up, no, not yet.
Gone in a snap. 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 We're back!
Gone in a snap!
We're back! And we're not going away!
In a snap!
None of this is going to bring our son back. But we're doing this in hopes not only to save children, but to save families from having to go through this. This is destroying so many lives.
Gone in a snap! Gone in a snap!
You just listened to the PSA that our next guest, Sam Chapman, created with his wife, Dr. Laura Berman, in honor of their son, Sammy. Welcome to a special edition of Play It Forward, and happy Friday, everyone. Alongside me is my guest co-host and fellow advocate and good friend, Carol Trottier. Momentarily, we will introduce our guest, Sam Chapman, but let's pass the mic to Carol for a closer look at what Play It Forward is all about.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. The Play It Forward Project is a nonprofit that raises awareness, educates, and advocates to stop the fentanyl opioid crisis with a focus on prevention and recovery through peer-to-peer advocacy. On our show, we bring in guests from the field of addiction, people in recovery, and much more. We discuss illicit drugs, fentanyl, and substance use disorder. We broadcast from Stony Brook University's radio station live every other Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are now live streaming our previous episodes on Spotify podcasts under Play It Forward and on our YouTube channel at The Play It Forward Project, where you can listen to our previous shows on the go. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward. And lastly, I'm excited that Play It Forward is a new club on campus. We welcome all students to join us and help continue and expand the advocacy. We need more student club members.
Yes.
A little bit about fentanyl. Fentanyl is a highly potent synthetic opioid. It's 30 to 50 times stronger than heroin. As little as 2 milligrams of fentanyl has been killing people every day. 2 milligrams of fentanyl is enough to cover Abraham Lincoln's nose on a penny. This deadly opioid kills one person on average every 11 minutes, or over 200 lives each day, making it the leading cause of death for adults 18 to 45. This is similar to a commercial jet crashing every single day. And without further ado, here's Allison to introduce our guest today.
Thank you, Carol. Today on Play It Forward, we're honored to be joined by Sam Chapman, a tireless advocate for child safety and the father of Sammy Chapman, who tragically lost his life in February 2021 after unknowingly purchasing a fake prescription laced with fentanyl on Snapchat. Along with his wife, Dr. Laura Berman, Sam has turned his grief into action, fighting for the passage of Sammy's Law, which seeks to mandate parent monitoring software on social media platforms to protect minors. Together, they've been raising awareness about the dangers social media poses to youth and working relentlessly to ensure no other family has to endure the same devastating loss. Sam, I want to thank you on behalf of Carol and I. Welcome to Play It Forward. Thanks for being our guest. We are so sorry for the loss of your beautiful boy, Sammy. Why don't you tell our listeners about him and a little bit about yourself before we dive in?
Well, Sammy is forever 16. He was a football player, a bruiser of a kid, very strong. He always defended his little brother if there was any trouble. And he was a budding businessman. He wanted to go to NYU and study. He was mining Bitcoin in the closet in our house, unbeknownst to us, and was intending on being the world's first trillionaire. So we were counting on him for our retirement. And he also had a biosphere in his room. So he was very curious and wonderful, and we miss him every day. And I am a former venture capitalist, also married to Dr. Laura Berman, the relationship expert and Oprah person. And she is perhaps the most interesting part about me. You know, she's really an expert in sex, love, and relationships, and is now doing grief work for people who lost children like we did.
Wow. It's amazing work that you're doing, you and your wife. And I commend you for your courageousness to do this. It's certainly not easy. Carol certainly knows as well. Tell us what happened.
We were at home, asleep. Unbeknownst to us, a dealer had reached out to Sammy on Snapchat, which is the dark web for children. The snaps disappear. And so it's impossible for a parent to really parent online. This platform was started at Stanford University with Evan Spiegel and two of his mates, one of whom had delivered a naked picture to a woman he wished he could have back. And he said so, and Spiegel goes, "That's $1 million idea." And they started something called Peekaboo, which was basically a sexting app. And about a year into it, they realized that the users were mostly teens. So they renamed it Snapchat, and 75% of America's children are on this formerly sexting app. It has a geolocator device that lets drug dealers and sextortionists know where your children are if they have that feature turned on. It has something called the quick add feature, which allows the networking to happen inside of a family's contacts. So if your child has that turned on, a drug dealer will network inside of a school that way and get all of the contacts that your kid has. So that's how they found Sammy and offered him something free with a colorful drug menu. The reason they offer it for free is because fentanyl is so addictive that if it doesn't kill the kid, they're a user for life. And so we have many new fentanyl addicts walking our streets, and you can see them in our major cities sort of walking around or not like zombies with their heads hung over. 50% of the pills that are sold online have fentanyl in them, according to the DEA. And in the pills that the DEA interdicted last year, 60% of those had something called tranq or xylazine in it. And xylazine is a horse tranquilizer, also used on humans, but it suppresses respiration and almost puts the person to sleep. Fentanyl also suppresses respiration, and that's often what kills somebody is they stop breathing, or as in Sammy's case, they reduce respiration enough where they vomit, and then they aspirate the vomit and choke on it. And so we found Sammy dead on the floor on Super Bowl Sunday, and he was in what I call the fentanyl death pose. He'd fallen backwards, he had vomited and choked on it. And I tried to resuscitate him while my wife dialed 911, and we didn't succeed. The EMTs and firemen showed up, and they worked on him for a good hour and didn't succeed. And then the police and the coroner showed up and were not able to really help. We asked the police to let's contact Snapchat and find out what's on this profile. And they said that Snap Inc. doesn't help the police. And we were in Santa Monica, California at the time, which is the exact town that Snap Inc. is located in. So they don't even help their own local police force. We asked them, let's go back on Snapchat and tell this dealer we want more and use Sammy's account. And they said, that's not the way we do it. You know, they have to go through casing the dealer's home and executing search warrants. And they have an entire way that they go about this that is different than what we were assuming could happen right away. So we have gone on Laura's Instagram to warn our community about this dealer and try to let them know, put the drug menu up there, let them know this guy delivers and that he had delivered a lethal dose to our home after we were asleep like a pizza. And that our boy didn't even have to leave our front yard to get the dose that killed him.
Oh my gosh.
And the media picked up on it because Laura's an Oprah person. The media picked up on what was happening. The police left and said they'd be back in 3 months if the tox screen showed anything. It was during COVID on lockdown, and there was a big backup in that sort of, we felt lost. Fortunately, after the media picked up the story, we went on NBC Nightly News with Kate Snow, and the local news channels all had us on. And 3 days later, 3 detectives showed up at our door, ready to investigate. And they sort of learned from our case that when there is a death, that treating it like a so-called overdose is not the way to do it anymore because of the prevalence of fentanyl. You have to treat it like a poisoning, which is what it was.
Absolutely.
He didn't know he was taking fentanyl. He didn't want to take fentanyl. It was a counterfeit drug. And So they didn't collect evidence. They didn't do the things that you would normally do in a murder case or a poisoning,
So
which
homicide.
is what this is.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And in Los Angeles County, the district attorney at that time wasn't prosecuting these cases. And the police eventually found our son's killer. They had him locked up on another charge, and our district attorney, George Gascon, let him walk out the door.
Wow.
But we've since been politically active and helped get that man removed from office. And we have a new district attorney who's a law and order guy and is prosecuting these cases and returning safety to the Los Angeles County. We've also been involved in a number of other laws, which we can go into down the road here.
Yeah.
But, we're trying to help people find where they want to go after something like this happens. Do they want to get their story out there? Do they want to help change laws? Do they want to distribute Narcan to people? Or do they just want to sit at home and try and get over it? It's a very difficult road when you lose a child. There's nothing worse. I had post-traumatic stress syndrome for 2 entire years. Oh. It was hard to take a shower. The shower was the place where I used to do my creative thinking because the gray space is there and all of the creative thoughts would come to me. But instead, that space was filled with images of my son's death and trying to resuscitate him and unwanted thoughts that I now know are perfectly normal for any parent who's lost a child. But it takes time. Time does heal all wounds. I'll never be the same. But I feel much better now, 4 years out. There was a big turning point at the end of year 2 where I started to feel much, much better. And we learned a lot about grief. We learned a lot about advocacy. We learned a lot about fentanyl and ways to combat it. And I'm happy to bring some of those thoughts to your audience.
I am so sorry for you and your wife's loss. I mean, it's such an incredibly tragic story. You brought me back a little bit. My father found my brother and tried to resuscitate him. So I'm so sorry that you had to go through that extra step and have those terrible memories. I feel like I lost part of my father also. So I can understand how you must feel. But tell us, Carol, do you have anything you want to?
Well, when you said it took you 2 years to sort of come out of the worst part of the grief. Now I do a lot of advocacy work, but I always tell people, my son's been gone almost 7 years. I always say, I didn't do anything, probably more like 3 years, 3 or 4 years. I just didn't care about anyone else's pain. I was just, crushed. So I totally get that. And everyone needs to deal with the grief in their own way. Some people are never going to, become an advocate and march someplace with a sign or go to political meetings. Everyone has their own road. And I love what you're saying about that, that you help people decide, well, what do you want to do with this grief? Like we call it pain to purpose. But, maybe your purpose is doing grief counseling like your wife does, which is wonderful to hear. But let's hear more about the work you're doing.
Well, so we decided to march outside Snap Inc. and let the people who work there know that what you're doing every day is killing children. And so we got a group of parents together and we put up signs showing our kids and saying Snap Inc. was part of our child's death. And we marched and marched around their headquarters and then speechified out in front of their headquarters and got it all out. And really, the Santa Monica police were standing there with us.
Good.
No one was trying to stop us. They would have taken a microphone if they wouldn't have been fired because they saw it every day and the company wasn't helping. We're part of a lawsuit now, which we can talk about. But during our lawsuit, what we found out was that Snap Inc. was actually letting the dealers know when law enforcement was contacting them about their profile.
Oh, my God.
And so they've really sort of been a collaborator in the deaths of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of children. And Lately we saw that the CEO of Telegram was arrested when he landed in Paris for all of the crimes that are happening on his platform, with the knowledge that he has of what was occurring and not changing it. And I like to warn the leaders of these companies, these social media companies, which have become the drug dealers of our age, that one day an attorney general may decide that they have been criminals and there is no statute of limitation on murder, and that they too could be prosecuted for their role in our son's death and in the deaths of so many children across the country, from not just drug dealing, but from sextortion, bullying, the choking challenge, which is something that happens on TikTok where kids are supposed to strangle themselves and then release it towards the end, and so many kids don't release it. They die that way.
Oh.
It's just terrible. And so that's what Sammy's Law is about. I spoke with Evan Spiegel, the CEO, and I told him there's something called third-party safety software out there, and if it had been installed on Snapchat, we would have known that a dealer was reaching out to our son. And this software gives a warning to parents or to teachers if something dangerous happens on the family's devices or on a school's device. And it allows you to parent again online. And it has stopped 17 school shootings around the country, according to the FBI. It has called police over 1,000 times when there was imminent harm. For your users, you can go on a website called bark.us and download this software. They also have a safe phone and a safe watch. But the platforms with our children in general don't allow for the integration of this software. So Snapchat doesn't, TikTok doesn't, Discord, the gaming platform, doesn't, and the instant messaging platforms of Instagram and Facebook don't allow for third-party safety software integration. And I asked Evan Spiegel why. Why not just allow this wonderful software that exists for a parent to download an app and be aware? You know, it's not going to ruin anything. It's not going to tell us where the party is. It's going to tell us if a kid wants to commit suicide or someone's trying to sell them a gun or drugs.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, he didn't want their data to run through another company because they scrape our kids' data and they use it to sell targeted advertising to companies like Disney, places that want to advertise to our children.
That was
I think
his
these
concern.
companies that are yes, and I think these companies that are advertising on Snapchat need to know that they are party to children dying, and if they are a child-friendly brand like Disney, they need to be aware that this is not a child-friendly platform. And if anyone wants to check it out, go ahead and log on to Snapchat, open an account for yourself, and you will see drug dealers reaching out to you. You will see nude men and women reaching out to you. It's a mess. It's a sewer. And 75% of our children are on there. My wife likes to say that putting your child on social media these days is like dropping them off in a drug-filled neighborhood and hoping they do well for themselves. So we have pushed for Sammy's Law, which would require third-party safety software on any platform, gaming or social media, with children as users. And that would provide for a parent to be able to download an app that would give them a warning if something dangerous happened or illegal happened on their children's device. It's
Sam,
in Congress right now. Yes.
All
go
right,
ahead.
let's say go back to that night your son orders something on Snapchat. In other words, your phone would have gone ding. Just explain it in a practical way so I could visualize what a parent, what information a parent would get that with this.
Right. So a parent downloads the software and they put it on the devices of their family, and the child knows that this is happening. So not only will it give a warning to a parent if something dangerous happens, either with a text or with an email, you get to decide how you want to be warned, but it would also change the child's behavior because they would know if something like that happened that mom and dad are going to find out.
Okay.
And so they might not explore that themselves.
Right.
So third-party safety software not only monitors incoming, but also outgoing messages. So if your kid were somehow making a bad decision, and good kids make bad decisions all the time, the parent would also be warned about that. But in Sammy's law, it doesn't do things like out LGBTQ kids. You're not allowed to do that with the software. You're not allowed to out reproductive choice like abortion or birth control. It's meant for illegal or dangerous activities.
Okay.
You're not allowed to out political speech. That's not part of it. And if you do those things, you lose access to the link to social media and gaming platforms.
Wow.
So we've tried to protect what Evan Spiegel was worried about, so that he can still advertise the way he wants to.
Money.
Also, you're not allowed to, if you're a third-party safety software provider under the law, you're not allowed to use the data for commercial purposes, only for safety purposes, and it has to be released after 2 weeks.
And that was his concern.
So this is our bill in Congress.
Yeah.
It's HR 5778. We have a website where you can learn about it, sammyslaw.org. We're going to get a new number in the new Congress, and we'll be back on to let people know, to write their congressional representatives and let them know that they're in favor of Sammy's law and that they want to be able to parent again online.
Yes.
We have tried to take it to California and to Illinois, and we made it out of committee 9-0 in each state. But then the LGBTQ plus community advocacy groups put the kibosh on it, and it didn't get down to the floor. And the reason that happened was because they didn't object to the Kids Online Safety Act as it was running through Congress. And their people rose up and said, we don't want any of these quote unquote nanny state laws, because we're worried that it's going to limit LGBTQ content online, and we're worried that it might out kids to their parents. So they'd rather protect children from their parents than from fentanyl or the choking challenge.
How did you answer that to them? Or I'm sure you got up to speak. How did you address that they were kiboshing the law over that?
So LGBTQ kids are 3 times as likely to be bullied online and therefore subject to suicidal ideations than kids who aren't of that group. And they need the protections more. And of course, parents love our children. And if you're making up the story that some conservative parent in Mississippi is going to beat their kid because they found out that they're gay, I say that's not what the software does. Right. And even if that were true, fentanyl poisoning is the number 2 cause of death for children these days, and is much greater risk than a parent doing some harm to their own child, not to mention all of the other online harms that third-party safety software protects from. So it's about the money. It's all about the money. They lost money by not objecting to the Kids Online Safety Act, and they changed their position and started objecting to it. And in Congress, when things don't pass, it's also about the money. The internet companies put over $50 million into fighting the Kids Online Safety Act this year, and we were up against the same lobbyists that they were. They really have, like Google, for instance, has 1 lobbyist for every 8 lawmakers. And the other companies all do as well. And they have a powerful lobbying group called Net Choice that comes out and challenges every law that could limit any online traffic. You see, these companies report every quarter to Wall Street the number of users that they have. And if that number goes down, their stock price goes down. A company like Snapchat, for instance, has never earned a nickel. The only income they've ever reported is from money that Wall Street's given them. It's called income from cash. And so there are no operating income. The whole thing is about the future and what it could become. And so without actually providing any earnings to your stockholders, all they have is the number of users. And that's why they are allowing drug deals to happen, pimping to happen, firearm sales to children. All of these things could be stopped in a heartbeat You saw how TikTok just went dark because of a law.
Right.
And on Snapchat right now, they say if you type the word fentanyl, you get a warning, like the warning on a pack of cigarettes about cancer. If they can do that, they can also shut those platforms down. They can also shut those accounts down, or give them a one-time warning and shut them down the second time, right? But they don't do it because they don't want to report a decline in users to Wall Street.
Wow. That's
Well, money, when you say it's all about the money, they sound no different than Mexican cartels. I always say, how can they sleep at night? How can any of those people sleep at night? Money, money, money. China sending the precursors, money. And look at all the people that were invited to the inauguration, all the heads of all those corporations you're talking about, all those social media corporations.
Well, the new president has just announced that the cartels are going to be listed as a terrorist organization under U.S. law, and he's doing that on the first day
I
and
do
shutting
like that.
down the border.
How do you feel about the cartels being considered a threat, a terrorist?
I think it's true. I think in 2022, 73,000 people died from fentanyl poisoning, and to quote Bill Barr, in the China hearing that all of the fentanyl parents were invited to, if we had a ship coming to our shores with a bomb that would kill 73,000 people, we would blow that ship out of the water. And instead, we let it come ashore every day. And he said that he's aware that China is coming at the U.S. in a variety of dangerous ways, but the fentanyl precursors are the most dangerous. And
it's by design.
The Special Select Committee on China invited fentanyl parents to a hearing, and we got 60 parents to fly to Washington, D.C. and be part of this hearing. And they taught us that the Chinese government is refunding a 13% value-added tax to the chemical producers that are selling the precursor chemicals abroad, and that where we had 73,000 deaths that year, they had 0 in China.
Oh, my goodness.
So they are basically funding an undeclared war against the United States, and they are using the cartels to do it. And the reason they're using the cartels is because in President Trump's first term, he told the Chinese that he was going to put a 5% tariff on all of their goods if they didn't stop sending the precursor chemicals to the United States.
So they send them to Mexico.
And it's right over the border.
To Mexico.
Exactly.
And then with the open borders, we had an influx.
All money.
Yeah.
And the DEA says that fentanyl is the cheapest, the easiest to hide, and the deadliest substance that they've ever encountered. And it's coming across in drones, in big shipping containers, in something we call the de minimis exemption, where certain packages coming from abroad that are less than $800 in value don't have to go through scrutiny and customs.
That's right. And you don't, because it's such a small amount, right? You could send a small package and make $1 million on selling it.
That's right.
It's not like you're selling, large bundles of marijuana or something. You're talking about tiny amounts of something.
That's right. And they're using tunnels. They are sending young people across the border illegally in such a way, in big gushes of humanity, so that the ICE agents have to focus on that. And then they sneak drugs across another part of the border when they've got the ICE agents all tied up on something else.
Wow.
They are multi-billion-dollar corporations that are bigger than most countries.
Yes.
And every time we think of a way to stop them, they are way ahead of us and have a new way to deliver the poison.
We've heard this so many times from
very smart
DEA agents and alike. Yeah, it's like they're the Amazon of the drug world.
Well, there's this link. There's
Amazon.com,
there's this chain of evil that is coming through our country. So we've got the precursor chemicals coming from China, going to the cartels getting it across the border. Then social media picks up, and Facebook is sending 19 and 20-year-olds with vehicles down to pick up the drugs and bring them to the dealers and the drug labs here in the United States. by the way, the Chinese are also sending across the pill molds that they're using to make these counterfeit drugs. And then the drug dealers are using social media to solve the last mile problem and get the drugs into our communities. And finally, the district attorneys in the big cities are letting the drug dealers walk back out the same day.
Why?
And not prosecuting the cases. And if we could break the chain anywhere, it would truly help this crisis. Unfortunately, so much fentanyl has gotten into the country in the meantime that there's enough to kill every man, woman, and child 5 times over. So the reason that the DAs are letting them walk out is something that they call restorative justice, which has been funded by George Soros to put very liberal district attorneys into our biggest cities, and that they believe that locking people up equals racism somehow. And so they are letting drug dealers back out, and it's wrong. It's just making our cities more and more dangerous. And the minority communities that they're trying to protect with this restorative justice is actually harming those communities the most.
Even more,
and, At first, it was the white communities that had the most deaths per capita from fentanyl, but now it's turned into the African-American community. And so everything is sort of shifted, as it often does. And since fentanyl was so cheap, it's not like the cocaine crisis of the 1980s, where the drug was so expensive that it didn't touch the minority communities until it turned into crack rocks. This is hitting all socioeconomic levels of American society and is sort of an equal opportunity killer.
Wow.
If you could meet with the new administration today, what would be like top 3 things you would ask?
Well, it turns out that we are meeting with the administration.
I love to do that.
Yeah. I had a meeting with the transition team and 12 parents like us who lost a child to fentanyl poisoning just the other day to make policy recommendations. And I've actually been asked to submit my resume to be the director of the ONDCP, or what we know as the drug czar.
Wow.
And
congratulations.
Well, no, there's nothing.
Well,
I'm a long shot, you know.
Fingers crossed.
But it was nice to be asked. Yes. And the transition team has told us that they want a parents' council to be put together to advise the new administration, because fentanyl parents like us have become what I call accidental activists and mini experts on the crisis, because something so important has happened in our lives that we truly understand the issue. And so we're hopeful that they're going to let Parents' Council be formed to advise the administration at all different levels. And so the top things that I would say are to make it illegal to have drug trafficking on social media, and that any posts that are like that need to be taken down and accounts need to be closed down. So that's number one. Let's put the modern drug dealers out of business on that one.
That would be
level.
huge.
The second is, and the president has already done this, which is to threaten China with tariffs if they don't stop sending the precursor chemicals into our hemisphere. And that includes Mexico and wherever else they want to think about it. They need to shut down the fentanyl trade. And it's important to understand the difference between medical fentanyl that's used every day by anesthesiologists and is actually produced by American drug companies, and this illegal trade that is coming from China. And so they can't afford to have the 10% tariff that the president has put in place if they don't stop this. So that would be a big one. And then finally, number 3 would be to end the exemption for things that are under $800 and to not allow anything, any packages into the country that don't have to go through customs. This de minimis exemption feels like a loophole that is killing us, and we need to end it.
And most people, when they think of how it's getting into this country, they just think of like the border, but so much comes in through the mail and other ways. And I heard they were even hiring, students to like, hey, here's a couple $1,000s to drive down to Mexico and get something and come back, because maybe U.S. citizens are not scrutinized as much. But
absolutely,
yeah.
they're putting those kids in cars that have the gas tank emptied out and put with liquid fentanyl, and then they put a small auxiliary gas tank in place that's not that big because it's a one-way journey. They're going to get through, they're going to drive it to a drug lab, they're going to bleed dry the real gas tank that has the liquid fentanyl in it, and then abandon the car. And so you're right, they're using all of these ways. In fact, the fentanyl crisis started with drones flying across the border to deliver the pills to drug labs. And now they've even started around Halloween making a rainbow fentanyl that looks like Smarties so that they can get kids to take these things accidentally. And, you know, they're dosing the fentanyl for a drug addict. And the amount of fentanyl that a drug addict can stand kills a kid in a second. And so that's why so many children are dying. You know, you talk about the nose of Lincoln on a penny. Think about 2 grains of salt or the tip of a pencil worth of fentanyl. That's what 2 milligrams are. And when we're talking about what they're using for the anesthesiologist, they're measuring that in micrograms. You know, it's nothing like what's being put in these pills. Yeah. And so the theory that one pill can kill is a reality in the United States. And if there's any message that should go out there to kids these days, it's that if you take a pill that was somehow purchased online or stolen from someone else's medicine cabinet or didn't come out of a bottle from your doctor with your name on it, you are risking your life. Yeah. And it is not worth it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's not just one pill anymore. It's being put into loose drugs like marijuana and cocaine. And so any marijuana that comes from a drug dealer that's not from a dispensary, including vapes, by the way, they're putting them in vapes, is not safe.
Yeah. And the counterfeit vapes, I've heard that. There was a recent article in the Times a couple of weeks ago about how the cartels are sort of trying to reformulate to make the counterfeit pills not quite as deadly, and they're testing it on homeless people, and they're giving a homeless person $30 to try it. You know, is this going to kill them or not? To get more people addicted, as opposed to, I guess, I don't know if it.
That's true. Know, the DEA says that the actual
it went
strength
down
of
slightly,
from like 7 to 5.
Right now it's 5,
and that the number of deaths has gone from 117,000 down to 100,000, and they're all celebrating that. Well, you know,
that was my next question, Mr. Chapman. Overdoses are down, but interpret that for me. Does that mean drug use is down? And what do you like? Is that going to mean people take their foot off the pedal with the
issue? To be at 100,000 deaths is nothing to be proud of. You know, you're coming up from what used to be 1,000 deaths to 100,000 deaths. You can't look from the year before. Plus, it's an election year. Yeah. And so you can't trust any of the numbers that are being thrown around, right? They wanted to use some decrease to help get reelected. But there are many contributing factors, right? And I don't think the lethality of the pills is one of them, because the current lethality of the pills are lethal for a child. They're lethal for anyone who hasn't tried fentanyl before. They're not lethal to a fentanyl addict, but they are on a first-time user. And so there are things like Narcan that may be bringing down the numbers. You know, there's education, like what we're trying to do. I've done 150 television segments since my son died, trying to warn parents about the dangers of fentanyl and the dangers of Snapchat. But I'll tell you, one of the main reasons that this is coming down is because so many people have died. So many of the people who might otherwise be getting killed have already been killed. And so this reported decrease is nothing to be proud of yet. We need to get those numbers way, way down before anybody celebrates.
I can't agree with you more.
That's exactly how I feel. The age groups of people that they're targeting for the drug use, they died. Hundreds of thousands of people have died in that age group already. I mean, I think Narcan is helping, but education has got to be the key, right?
And it's important now that we're bringing up Narcan that people know that Narcan is very effective, but when you put it in, you squirt it up someone's nose. If they pass out, it's non-toxic. So if someone goes down, don't wonder about what caused it while their brain goes without oxygen. Use it right away because it can't harm them, right? And dial 911 because it wears off quickly. And if you don't get them into an ambulance that has more Narcan, they can relapse very quickly, and they are relapsing quickly. And I will tell you, shame stands in the way as well. Parents who may have saved their kid's life with some Narcan and then don't dial 911 because they don't want to hurt their kid's future, they wind up losing that child because they didn't call for medical help.
And they re-intoxicate, right? Like 30 minutes later, they go to bed, they go, I'm fine now, right? Or
Yep, not even 30 minutes. It depends on the weight of the child, on how much fentanyl's in play, whether they're a prior user. There's a whole mathematical thing to it. But the thing you have to know is use it. Be sure to use it if someone goes down, and then call 911. Don't worry about the shame. Worry about the life.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is the best way to reach young people, to get this message out?
I think other young people are the way. We're making a documentary right now called Vanish Mode, and we've used our 19-year-old son to communicate to other 19-year-olds, and we have images of him and his friends skateboarding and talking about how their brains are on overload from the Snapchat and all of the online stuff that's happening to them, and how many kids are turning to drugs now and are experimenting, and how social media has made it so easy to get something delivered to them, and how dangerous that is. But we have to have kids like our Jackson communicating to other kids, because he found Sammy dead on the floor. He's the one that put up the first cry. And he's had a very difficult road, you know, with anxiety and depression that came from it. And he's really healed up as well now and is a sophomore at Chapman University and having a great life. The great life that his brother could have been having as well if this hadn't happened to him. But I do think that young people out there who understand this need to go communicate to their schools, need to go lecture, need to go on TikTok and make videos and let other kids know how dangerous this is. Because kids listen to other kids, kids like our Jackson who have a sad story to tell.
I completely agree with you. Peer-to-peer advocacy is something I think really could work. Kudos to your son for having the courage to do this. I saw your sizzle reel for Vanish Mode, and it was so moving and impactful. And one thing that really stuck out with me is one of the kids said, all this social media and this overload, our brains are so overloaded, it's depleting our dopamine supply completely. And so that really says a lot about the state of our children's mental health. You know, social media really does need to step up.
Yes, and I think, you know, we're up against their lobbyists. Here in California, we passed SB 976, which would require that social media not contact kids when they're at school or at night when they're asleep, and no addictive or dangerous feeds to go against a child when you're delivering social media to a child. And the governor signed the bill. I did 30 lobbying meetings to try and get it passed with California lawmakers.
Wow.
And the ink was not dry on the governor's signature before NetChoice, the lobbying group for the internet companies, challenged it in court. And they got the part that says you can't contact the kids when they're at school or asleep thrown out on First Amendment grounds.
Oh my gosh.
But the judges allowed for the part where you can't deliver the dangerous algorithms to the children. And that would have kept that drug dealer from finding our son. The quick ad feature, the geolocator device, the scrolling and scrolling of ads that are somehow related to your kid, all of that can't happen under the law. So then NetChoice appeals it to a higher court, and the Ninth Circuit Court here, the federal court, appeals court in California, enjoin the law for 30 days while they hear the case. And so we're just hopeful that NetChoice loses their appeal and California leads the way in stopping these dangerous algorithms. And what that would mean is that there's a chronological feed given to your child, and that the advertising wouldn't be targeted in any way. It would be like watching NBC or CBS, you know, where whatever ads are running, that's all they'd see. And so you wouldn't be able to, like right now what happens is if your daughter goes on and requests a salad dressing recipe, within a day or two, she's going to get eating disorder talk fed to her, some sort of thing that says how to hide bulimia. The algorithms are driving things that keep kids lit up so that they stay online. And these things are unhealthy. If your kid goes on and says they're feeling depressed, then suicide baiting comes on and a razor blade draws across the screen with blood dripping down and the words, "It won't hurt so bad." These are the things that these algorithms are delivering to our children that are causing them to commit suicide, to have eating disorder, you know, and the drugs that are being dealt.
This is outrageous.
You know, if you go online and you put in a plug emoji on Snapchat, you will get 10 drug dealers within minutes trying to sell you drugs because it means plug me in.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
I can't. You know, I used to think the Mexican cartels were the most evil, but I just switched over to all these companies that you're describing. The social media companies are they're the new drug pushers, and not just, you know, the drug, just like they feed into the biggest
Vulnerable
insecurities
kids.
of young people. What,
And
to
it's
get
true.
more followers? That's what it's all about to them. Followers equals money.
And to keep them online for as long as possible so they can sell them more ads and get more Disney money.
You know, it's interesting.
my gosh.
China, you know, owns TikTok, and their kids there are not even allowed to use it.
That's
But
correct.
send
They
it
have
here. But send it
Yeah.
here to this country like all the other stuff.
It's crazy.
They have a different name there. I lead a group of parents who are supporting what's called the People's Bid for TikTok, which is being led by Frank McCourt, the real estate billionaire who used to own the Dodgers. And he's created something called Web 3.0, where you are in control of your data, that they're not allowed to take your data or scrape your kids' data without your permission. And if they do and they sell it, they have to give you some of the money. So it makes the entire internet safer for kids, where they're not allowed to scrape a kid's data. So we're standing behind Frank to buy TikTok, which according to the new law is required, and to make TikTok safe for children. And so you'll stop seeing Hamas videos and the choking challenge, and the algorithms will not feed your kids dangerous stuff because they won't be allowed to scrape the data and find out the innocent things that your kids are interested in, and then feed them back the adrenaline invoking things that keep them online.
Wow.
And so hopefully someone safe will buy TikTok, or the president will force a sale to the United States government and make the Chinese make it safe for kids the way they do in their own country, with the same sort of technology, but none of the danger is allowed there.
Wow.
Mr. Chapman, what can we do here in New York to, you know, pursue the Snapchat? I mean, you're right there in California where they are, and you've made so much progress. But what would you tell us here as advocates and concerned people? What could we do?
Well, first of all, you know, to create communities where the kids aren't on Snapchat, to have safe schools, and to ask your school to have all of the parents not put their kids on social media, not allow for phones at school. As far as we're concerned, anyone who can call up their congressman or their senator and ask them to vote in favor of Sammy's Law.
Okay.
That would help so that we could have third-party safety software on all the gaming platforms and all the social media platforms that will deliver valuable warnings to parents and teachers when dangerous things happen. There was one incident where a rural school was using Bark, and a kid went on social media and said he had a gun in his locker, and Bark called the school, and it was rural, and no one answered in the headmaster's office. Then they called the police, also a very small police station, and no one answered the phones.
Oh my goodness.
And so they called the fire department, and the fire department went with lights and sirens over to the school, grabbed some teachers, went to the locker, got the gun.
There really was a gun there. Oh my gosh.
And there was no school shooting. And so
Oh my
this
God.
technology exists today, and the platforms are not allowing it to be integrated.
Well-
and all they have to do is open a link, or what's known as an API, like they do with our bank accounts, etc.
Yeah.
They have those every day, and let this industry help.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you for
That is
all the work you do.
amazing information. You know, Carol and I talk with so many people about this subject, and you think you know so much about it. You just educated us and our listeners tremendously. I want
I
to
know.
thank you so much. We do have about another minute. So what would you leave our listeners with?
Well, so until Sammy's Law is implemented, get the username and passwords for your kids' devices and for the software that they use. So if your kid doesn't come home at night, you can go online and find out where the party is or what his friends are saying on any platform that doesn't disappear like Snapchat. You need to be able to spot check. You need to be able to let them know that you're going to find some way to look over their shoulder and that mom and dad care about what happens online. And then go get a safe phone. If you're got younger kids, go to bark.us and get a phone that doesn't have the social media to start them out.
Yeah.
Buy yourself an extra year or two of safety.
Wow. That is vital, important information. And I want to thank you so much for your time with us today. And again, we're so sorry for the loss of Sammy, you and your wife, Laura. And I signed the petition. I encourage everyone to sign the petition. Tell our listeners your website where they can find this.
SammysLaw.org, SammySlaw.org.
All right. Everyone go check that out. It takes 10 seconds to sign the petition. So I wish you lots of success with that. And we'll have to have you come back on because I hope you have good news for us.
Yes, thank you for leading the way. This is it was eye-opening what I learned.
Well,
Thank
thank you all for what you're doing and for getting the story out there.
Thank you so
It's
much.
life-saving work.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you again for being our guest today. And I sincerely thank everyone who supports our cause and understands how important it is to look out for each other and to empathize with anyone you know dealing with addiction. Let's continue to spread awareness about the dangers of illicit fentanyl and promote harm reduction tools like Narcan and fentanyl test strips and the app that Sam Chapman was talking about, Bark. Reach out to us via Instagram at sbu.playitforward for more recommendations. Carol?
Oh, I said it. I just thank you for your leadership on this, and I learned a lot. And I'm going to rate all my elected officials. We may have one on in a couple weeks,
Yeah.
so I definitely want to talk about, support for Sammy's Law.
Absolutely. But thank you again very much for you and Laura's work. And for now and always, thanks everyone for listening to Play It Forward. This is Allison of the Play It Forward Project. Tune into our next show on February 7th at 1 p.m. Again, I want to thank WUSB, my co-host Carol, and of course, our very special guest, Sam Chapman. Sam picked out a song for us. It is by Jellyroll, who helped advocate for the Fend-Off-Fentanyl Act, I want to add, which was passed. And the song is She by Jellyroll. You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Be well, everyone, and please look out for one another.